Hi, I'm Benji Samit.
Hi, I'm Dan Hernandez.
Welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show.
And welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show.
Welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show.
Dan Hernandez and Benji Samit, welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show. How are you both today?
We're doing great.
Doing all right.
Doing great. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you. I'm really excited to have you both on my show and speak about your career and all the exciting stuff you're working on too.
Yeah, we're happy to be here. Thank you for having us. It's always nice to have a reason to take a shower and, get out of bed before 1.
Honestly, my show's the only reason my house is ever tidy.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Only in the exact frame of this window, the rest of it's a mess.
That's all you need. That's all you need.
I've got a nice habitable space here. It's good.
These days, that's just right. That's all, who cares what's happening off frame?
Exactly. So you are, of course, both writing partners. Can you tell me how you first met and when you decided to start collaborating together?
Sure. Yeah, we actually met in college. We went to Brown University together, and we did a lot of theater. And so, we were working on some plays at school together, and then, collaborated on some stuff there. And when we graduated, I grew up in LA. I knew I was coming back to LA and going into TV and movies. And Dan he initially was focused on writing fiction.
Yeah, my degree from college is actually in fiction, which is what I thought I would be doing right now, like being like Stephen King
But I convinced him to sell out and come to Hollywood with me.
It wasn't that hard. Although at first we were selling out without any of the selling part. It was none of the reward, just the trying to sell out.
Theoretically selling out.
Many years trying to sell out, but thankfully, eventually things started to pick up, and we've been writing. We got our first TV writing job in 2012, and but we've been writing together since 2006. So we've really been, we're in it to win it with each other, I guess.
The long haul.
Now, you both wrote 1600 Penn, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, of course.
Yes.
But can you both tell me, what is the first thing you would do as president? I know the first thing I would do is probably just take a selfie.
First thing I would do as president. I think I'd have to get into those alien documents. I think
figure out what's going on in Area 51.
I think I'd say, Mr. Secretary of Defense, Mr. Secretary of State.
Take me there.
We're going. Let's wind up the chopper. I want to meet Brent Spiner, like Independence Day scientist. And, I want to see what's going on with the aliens. I think that would have to be a day one situation.
Yeah, I think Area 51 would definitely be in my top 3. In fact, I'd probably take the selfie at Area 51.
Yeah,
that's no better place for a selfie.
It does seem like you kind of have to get a baseline of like, okay, what is really going on in the world before I can continue my job as president?
Right.
Like, because that actually would affect my performance, I think, in some way. Yeah,
you need to know if there are aliens, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it, like, if they're like, okay, listen, we got to raise like the debt ceiling. Also, there's an alien armada coming in 2 years, just so you know. But right now, we're really focused on the debt ceiling. I'd be like, whoa, what are we?
Let's shift our priorities.
Let's shift our priorities, guys. Let's turn it around. Let's flip it.
Yeah, I mean, you have to save a bit of money for the aliens, right? You have to have a welcome party. You don't know, there's an alien armada coming, but you don't know if they're hostile.
We don't know anything, and that's why day one of a Hernandez and Samit administration, we're going to get to the bottom of it.
We're co-presidents.
We're co-presidents in this scenario.
Now, you also worked on Super Fun Night starring Rebel Wilson. You worked on 2 episodes of that, I believe. What is it like going on to a show that hasn't aired yet, that you're writing just a couple of episodes for, and you have to have the humor and the tone fit in with everything else? Do you have access to the other scripts? Could you see other episodes that have perhaps been shot, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, when you're writing a show, generally it's the whole writing staff is working together on all of the episodes. So, even though, our episodes came later in the season or something, we have our hand in everything. It's a staff of like, 8 to 12 writers who sort of come up with all the storylines together and outline the episodes, and then they get divided among the different writers to write. And then, you know, everyone does some rewriting and punching up jokes together to make it so every episode has a shared style and humor and quality. So you're not, you know, completely in a vacuum, just like trying to figure out an episode on your own.
That one was a bit of an interesting situation because they had actually shot a pilot the year previously that had not gone to series. So there was a little bit of trial and error that we were aware of from what had not worked about the previous, you know, version of the show. I mean, I guess you could argue that the new version of the show didn't work either since it didn't last that long. But, you know, at the time, that was a slightly unique situation because there actually was like a whole other product that had been made so that we could sort of say, okay, let's try to refocus it in this way to the best of our ability. But I guess we did a bad job.
But you know, I've had food that didn't last that long, but it definitely worked. It was just there for a short time, but it was a good time.
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing. We met amazing people, and I think that for us, especially, you know, a lot of times for writers, getting that second job can be very challenging. I wouldn't say more challenging the first, but it's important to kind of get that second gig because
it proves that you know, the first job wasn't a fluke. And you know, that the second job makes it the beginning of a career as opposed to just like a one-time thing.
That's right. So we're still very grateful for having had that experience because it did kind of say, okay, you know, Dan and Benji are firmly TV writers and they're in this for, you know, for you know, the long haul.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, you also worked on One Day at a Time, a Netflix show, which was actually a reimagining of a 1975 series. Are there any other classic TV shows, perhaps from when you were growing up, that you'd love to do your version of?
That's a great question. I think they are going to do this, but I think it's a great idea. We're not involved in it anyway, but I think Quantum Leap is one that they definitely should redo.
Yeah.
That's one that Benji and I love that show.
It's one of our early bonding things between us, was like talking about old Quantum Leap episodes.
Quantum Leap was an amazing show. It was totally unique, and I think that there's more to be done in that world. And I guess Scott Bakula had recently said that they're talking about it, and I hope that it happens because I think that's one where I can see just so much has happened since that show went off the air that I think it would be really ripe for reimagining, and even the way that it ended was very sort of spiritual and I don't know. I really love that show, and I'd love to see it come back in some format.
Yeah, I would too. I actually rewatched an episode of Quantum Leap the other day because I was interviewing Bob Saget and he appeared in an episode.
Oh, he was on Super Fun Night, as a matter of fact. You know, in the episode, one of the episodes that we wrote.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Amazing. So can you tell me, does your job as a writer end in pre-production? You work on the script and you're done with it, or are you ever required for daily rewrites or revisions on set during a TV show?
It depends on the show.
It depends. Yeah. I mean, it also depends. Movies and TV are different. You know, in movies, a lot of the time you write something and then, you know, you send it. You know, we wrote Detective Pikachu. You know, then they went off to England and they made it, and you know, we stayed back here, and then suddenly, you know, months later we got to see a cut of it and give some thoughts. But with TV shows, for the most part, the writers are also like the main producers of the show. You know, most of the producer credits you see on a TV show are the writers, and so, you know, you stay with it, and it's a lot of the time it's like the episode that you write is the one that you take point in producing. So going to the production meetings, being there on set, you know, it's interesting. In TV, you know, you have the same writers that are working on the show all season long, but directors are just coming in for single episodes and leaving. So it's not like in movies where like the director is like the be all end all knowledge about everything that's going on. You know, in TV, a director is just a guest. And so they don't know how this moment in this episode is going to affect something 3 episodes from now, like where the story arcs are, where the characters are coming from. And so it's really important that the writer is on set as a guide for the director, and you know, keeping a sort of watch over the show and the series itself, making sure that episode to episode everything lines up.
And we've definitely had situations where right at the beginning of our career on 600 Penn, actually, there was a scene between Josh Gadd and Henry Winkler. And it wasn't even an episode that we wrote. We were just covering the set that day. And the feeling was from the actors, like, the scene just isn't working. And they were kind of like, someone, you know, as the person covering the set, you kind of look at each other going, oh, someone should really fix this. And then you think to yourself, it's us. We're the people that
we're someone.
So we literally, the entire crew was ready to film. All the extras, Josh and Henry Winkler, and Benji and I took a pencil and we went into the script and we wrote by hand a new version of this scene, which they then shot. And that was a really important moment for us, because it really did feel like one of the first, sometimes you think that you can do something professionally, or you think you maybe would be good at something, and then your feet are put to the fire and you actually have to perform. And I felt like we were able to pull it off in that moment. And it's just one of my prouder kind of writing adventure moments, I guess you might say.
And I guess there must be times too, if you're actually watching the words be brought to life by the actors or actresses, that you may be inspired to say something in a different way with that performer in mind. Oh yeah.
I mean, so much is there is an alchemical quality to, when you get great performers together, and now suddenly something that you didn't see before is happening between people, or when you have an amazing improviser like Josh, or some of the other people that we've worked with in the past, Rita Moreno, someone who is going to find something in the material that maybe we didn't see, or add a line or say something in a funny way that we hadn't anticipated.
Take a line that there's no discernible joke in the line, but find a way to make it funny just in delivery, and just elevate what we write.
Stephen Tobolowsky did that a lot. He is incredible at just taking a straight line and making it funny somehow, because he is so funny and he's such a professional.
And then you'll see things where you see a scene play out and you're like, oh, we can cut half the scene out, because just the emotion in the actor's performance is getting across everything we need to say. You don't need to say it in dialogue. And so, it's always magical seeing that stage where, like, it becomes more than just words on a page.
And you have to be adaptable, because the other version of it is in something like One Day at a Time, which is filmed with a live audience. Sometimes you think that there's a joke that's going to crush, and it's like silence. And so then you go, well, we're not going to go through that again. Let's write a new joke now.
You have 5 seconds to come up with a new joke, tell it to the actor before the next take starts. And, that's a whole other...
And that's a whole skill set in and of itself. And that's why sometimes I think when people say that multicam comedy is somehow like a lesser form than single cam or whatever, I find that silly, because it's extremely hard and extremely pressure filled to come up with something funny for someone to say instantly.
People refer to a lot of those shows as laugh track shows, when it's like, that's not a laugh, that's an actual audience of hundreds of people sitting there watching the show, and it's our job to make sure they laugh.
So it was great training in that respect. We've been really fortunate in our career to have the opportunity to do different kinds of shows, different, even stylistically different. And we've really enjoyed that. Actually, it's made us stronger writers, I think.
Yeah.
And it must be really gratifying too, when you have that live audience and you get that instant feedback and reaction to something you've written.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, it's amazing.
As opposed to, like, it's a different type of, like with a movie, with Detective Pikachu or Addams Family, like, we wrote those scripts 2 years before the movies came out. And so then it's like, maybe people in a few years will enjoy this, but you got to wait and find out. Versus, with the multicam, where it's like, that night if it works or not. And
it's the closest thing, like we said, we did a lot of theater in college, and it is the closest thing to night of the performance. You're going to put on a play, you're going to put on a show, for people, and it's all the same things. It's you know, connecting with the audience, and that sort of, sometimes there's like a magical thing that happens where the performer and the audience are totally locked in on each other and feeding off of each other, and it's really exciting when that happens. So we've been, it's really, I mean, it's amazing. When it works, it's amazing. When it doesn't work, does not feel good.
You also worked on the Tick. There's so many amazing superheroes and shows and movies out there at the moment. Is there any that you'd love to give your version of them? Be it someone that's out there right now?
I would say, a lot. You know, the Tick was a dream come true, for sure, because that was a character that we grew up loving. Ben Edlund, the creator of the Tick, also ran the show. So he kind of is the Tick. It's almost like the Tick speaks through him. And so it is kind of like hanging out with the Tick when you hang out with Ben. And he's also a genius. And so that was a really exciting thing. But I would say that there's a lot of superheroes that we would love to take a crack at. I mean, for me personally, I would love to play in this, you know, the Spider-Man universe in some way, shape, or form. We like the heroes that have some humor to them. I mean, we like all superhero stuff, but I thought that Captain Marvel was really great. You know, there's different characters, sort of like the deeper bench of characters from Marvel and DC that I think would be exciting to get into.
That Spider-Man tone where he's cracking jokes and it's, you know, that fun, youthful energy, I think is.
You know what I'd really like to do? I would really like to write an X-Men movie.
Yeah.
You know, that's one that would be like a bucket list type thing. And now, you know, someday they're going to bring X-Men into the Marvel universe again, and I just hope that I hope that happens someday. That would be really cool to write some for those characters. And I you know, the X-Men that I really like were, so, you know, growing up, were kind of the more youthful version of the X-Men from the 70s and the Chris Claremont, you know, years of that comic. And I think there's just, I don't know, it's very close to my heart, I guess, because it was a very formative kind of thing. The other thing I'd like to do at some point is, and I know that our friend Angel Soto, the director, is directing Blue Beetle, but I would love more Latino superheroes in the kind of the world. I'm excited about Salma Hayek in Eternals, but I think there's even some other superheroes that, you know, would benefit from having that Latino point of view. And I think it's an area that's a little bit underserved right now. So that's something I think would be really cool as well.
Yeah, it's taken so long with representation, right? They're slowly getting there, but there obviously needs to be a lot more of it. And I think that's really
and I think there's room for all different kinds of representation. And I think it's very affirming to see that. And now that I have kids and Benji has kids, you know, it would be nice to be involved in that in some way. So that's another one. That's another area that I think is really cool.
Now, I loved Pokémon Detective Pikachu. Can you tell me how you both came involved with that movie? Was it an idea you had, or did you hear that they were making it and you got involved that way?
So that was one where we had worked with the producers in the past on another movie, and you know, it was like a year or two prior, and you know, for various reasons, that movie, it looked like it was going to go, and then it sort of fell apart.
Which is pretty common.
Which happens, all the time. And, you know, we were bummed about it. But then, you know, fast forward a year later, and we found out that these same producers were doing Detective Pikachu. And, you know, we were catching up with one of the producers, and she told us that, you know, that they were working on it and still trying to crack the story. And she asked us, you know, if we knew about Pokemon, and we were like, yeah, we do. And so we sort of got brought in at an early stage when they still, you know, so Detective Pikachu itself as a property, like that was actually a Nintendo DS game that at the time was only out in Japan. It was only in Japanese. So there was this like roughly translated script of a Japanese DS game that they gave us, and they're like, we're trying to figure out how to turn this into a movie, and yeah, so we sort of pitched out our.
We were fortunate to come in at a formative moment in that process, and I think that we benefited from a couple of things. One of probably the biggest thing is that we're huge nerds, and so we actually came into the process having opinions on which Pokemon should be in the movie, which Pokemon might benefit from getting more of a spotlight. Like Psyduck was like literally the first day of our working with the company, with the producers. We said, well, we think Psyduck is like the comedic breakout Pokemon because he has a defined personality. He has a neurosis. He has comedic things about him that we think will play really well in a live action version of this character. And so I think that because we had opinions on the franchise itself and on the Pokemon and had our own favorite Pokemon, and it allowed us to kind of, at an early stage, kind of set the tone of along with everyone else and the director, of course, but it allowed us to make a foundation that it could be built upon, because that foundation was based on actual knowledge and actual fandom and actual, love and affection for this property. And I think that I hope kind of came through in the movie, how much kind of pre-work went into it before we even wrote any words of the script. It was really building this world out. And, it's not the typical Pokemon story where they're battling in an arena and no, none of that. So we had to sort of say, okay, well, what is this little pocket of the Pokemon world, and how can we expand it and make it feel accessible for people that could name all, there's almost 1,000 Pokemon at this point. Like,
Right.
And usually it's little kids that are like, can name it encyclopedia,
We knew that, it was an interesting task because we were writing, the first live action Pokemon movie, but it was not connected to anything else in Pokemon media like it, so we knew that the audience was going to be, on the one hand, like hesitant, but this was not the story of battle. There's no, where are the Pokeballs, where are the trainers, where's all this stuff, but it actually, I think, ended up in a lot of ways being freeing, because people were able to go into it without as many preconceived notions. Like they love the creatures themselves, but beyond that, we could sort of do our own world building and tell our own story and not be so constrained by a lot of that stuff.
Which was great for people like my mom, who knew nothing about Pokemon whatsoever. And so I think it was accessible for people that had no context for it, but also rewarding for people that are deeply versed in it, even much more so than we could ever be. So we're really proud of how it turned out.
Was the film always envisioned as being live action, or was there a time when it was planned to be animated like all the previous series and movies before?
No, it was always envisioned as the first live action Pokemon movie. I think that was something that the rights holders of Pokemon were super interested in, but were, cautious. They wanted to make sure that it was the right story.
And that's also why it was this sort of alternate place in the Pokemon universes, because from the start, it was viewed as like, all right, this is going to be different. This is going to be a live action Pokemon. Let's tell a different type of story in this world, rather than like doing a live action version of what we've already seen in the animated movies.
Right.
And it must have been so freeing too, I guess, not having Ash being the central main character too.
Yeah, I think that, obviously we love Ash and all of the mythology from those original, the show, but I think that's a story that, especially people who are our age, or even a little younger, I'm 37, but people who really grew up with the first show, we know those stories. We've seen those stories, and not to say that there's not a viable story to tell in that world, but I think that, like Benji said, it was freeing to sort of say, don't worry about what you think Ash should be like or should not be like. That's not what this is. That's not what we're doing. And you can kind of learn along with everyone else what this pocket of this universe is like and how it functions.
And so, of course, Pikachu is voiced by the legendary Ryan Reynolds. What did you think of his performance bringing your words to life?
Oh, I mean, he's incredible. And
He's the best.
And it's one of those things where when we wrote the movie, it was before he was signed on to do it. So like we sort of had to create this character in our mind without really having an actor in mind and a voice in mind. And so, we came up with this gruff detective character, but Ryan just took it to a whole other level.
When you have someone like Ryan on board, he's able to elevate material in such a way that it feels right. It's like he gets it. It's always, it's just always really smart improvements or a deepening of character or a really funny joke, because he himself is a very creative, funny person. And so when you work with a great creative mind like that, it elevates what we did, and then it just takes it to that next place of being such a distinct kind of, I hope, iconic character. And that's how we felt after we saw his performance. It was like it made us look good, because he took what we did and raised the bar even to the next level. And he's awesome.
Now, what were your favourite scenes to work on, and how did it feel to see them being brought to life? I mean, the film looks spectacular.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things in it that really were amazing to see, like scenes exactly how we imagined it. That scene when Tim first arrives in Rhyme City and he gets off the train and he's just overwhelmed by all the Pokemon around him, like that's really exactly how we wrote it in the script, and that's exactly how we envisioned
the
it.
feeling of it,
the emotions of that.
Yeah. For me, certainly the scene where the Bulbasaur comes out of the forest and helps them and takes Pikachu to be, to get healed. That one was also extremely similar to how we envisioned it, to what we wrote. I felt like it was our attempt at trying to write a Miyazaki-esque moment into this script, which I think is, I don't know, that there was a continuum from something like, I don't know, My Neighbor Totoro, where a spirit or an entity of Earth, of the natural world, kind of just appears. And if you catch it in the right way, and if you speak to it in the right way, maybe it will help you. And that feeling of, if we wandered into the right forest at the right time, maybe you would see a Bulbasaur. That scene was really special to me, because it captured that natural quality that I think is inherent in Pokemon, but maybe isn't as focused on in some of the other iterations. But there is a communication between like the human world and the natural world, and that moment for me really worked, and it looked beautiful. And Rob Letterman, the director, did an amazing job staging it, and all the animators and everybody. I love that moment.
And another one I would say, just a fun one, is the Mr Mime sequence, which, that was one where Rob, the director, had an idea. He had the notion like, hey guys, wouldn't it be funny to have an interrogation scene with Mr. Mime? And we were like, yeah, that does sound funny. But then it was, when we were actually sitting down to write it, it was one of these things where like we were on a deadline. It was the middle of the night, like it was like 3 a.m, and we're feeling crazed, and we were like, what would be insane? What if he mimes torturing Mr. Mime? And it was one of those things where we were making ourselves laugh, but we were like, there's no way that they keep this in the movie. Like this is too demented. This is too deranged. And then suddenly it became like the trailer moment.
Well, when the first trailer came out and it was kind of like the punchline of the first trailer, I was like, oh, I guess it did make the movie. So that was definitely one we're proud of also, because it was one that we definitely did not expect to survive the process of, 2-year process of making, over 2-year process of making a movie. And sometimes your favorite stuff does end up getting cut. But in that case, it skirted on by somehow.
Mm-hmm.
I rewatched the movie today, and I actually have Mr. Mime written in brackets alongside that question, because it was a hilarious scene. I loved it.
Yeah, thank you. It's one of our favorites that we've ever written. I'd say.
Definitely.
It's just like when he was trying to escape and then just fell over.
Yeah,
it was brilliant.
It's and that's a good example of picking a Pokemon like Mr. Mime, even though traditionally I don't think that that's necessarily a fan favorite Pokemon, but it has a character, right? It has identifiable
there's
qualities
cinematic about it
that lent itself to a live action version more than some of the other ones that maybe are more popular but have less defined quirks, comedic quirks. And so that's why that character really worked, I think, in this version of the movie.
And so you've recently contributed to Central Park on Apple TV. I love that show. Is that something you'd like to do more of? You also got to write for Josh Gadd again, a different character this time.
Yeah, so Josh is actually an old friend of ours, even older friend of
Yeah, I actually went to high school with Josh. He was a senior when I was a freshman in high school. And so he was like the cool, even from a young age, actually, Josh was like high school famous in South Florida. Everybody knew who Josh was. We all kind of knew that he would be famous someday because it's just, there's certain people that are just have that quality, that just have that thing. And he always did. And he was always the funniest and he's an amazing singer. And, you know, in some ways it's rewarding to see the rest of the world see a version of this person that I've seen since I was, 14. And we are very close with Josh and we're, kind of creative collaborators with him on a lot of things. And so Central Park was one where they did the first season and it just so happened that we had some time to come in and help out on the first season and then write some episodes in the second and the upcoming third season as well. So it was really awesome. And I mean, the cast is impeccable and brilliant singers and performers. And it was a really rewarding experience. It
was nice to write in animation, which, and now we're running a new animated show that, I think we're only able to do because we had the experience from working on Central Park. Yeah,
it was a great place to learn, and it was a great place to, again, try stylistically something a little different, which was a musical, like a full musical with multiple numbers per episode. That was not something that we had attempted before, but I think going into the future, it's something that we feel more confident to try to pull off if we ever decide like, oh, we need to make this episode a musical, or actually we're writing a musical movie. How do you even do that? Well, we've actually had a little bit of practical on the ground training now, so that was a very neat experience.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that because obviously the show has songs in it, and I wondered, did you write the songs or are they given to you and you have to try and fit the scene around the music? How does it work?
What would generally happen is when you're writing an episode, you sort of in the script you write in like a song would go here and the song would cover, like if there's story that needs to be covered in the song, like you sort of outline it, like, this character needs to profess their love to this other character in this song. Or if there's like an emotional thing, like, a song goes here where this character will compare their life's journey to climbing up a mountain, or, whatever it is, you give a little snippet that then gets sent with the script, it's in the script, it gets sent to composers to actually write the song that would then go in there.
A few of the writers did write their own songs. We didn't do that, though.
No, but it's usually,
Usually we left it to the professionals.
And there are some amazing guest composers that worked on that show, and so it was always fun to like sort of you wait a few weeks and then suddenly you get an MP3 file in your email of like, here's the song, and it's like, it was always fun.
In the case of the Weehawken Song, which is the first episode of the second season, is that right?
Yeah.
That one we did give a little bit more specificity of like, here are some people from Weehawken we think would be funny to work into the song.
Right.
Here are some historical things that happened.
Put our favorite stuff from the Weehawken Wikipedia page into a little outline where it was like, write a rap that covers all of this stuff.
And by the way, he did an amazing job, and David in performing it.
Yeah.
So that's one where we kind of were more specific, and then in other cases it's more like song goes here, and you leave that to some brilliant, Amy Mann or John Cameron Mitchell or some of the other amazing people that worked on the show.
By the way, you've now written 2 Josh Gad characters, Birdie and Skip. Are we ever going to get a Josh Gad cinematic universe?
we've tried. You know, we wrote a Gilligan's Island movie for Josh. It didn't work out, unfortunately, even though we loved the script. Josh would have been amazing in that part. That other movie that actually led to us getting Detective Pikachu was going to also star Josh. That kind of fell apart at the last minute, which, you know, we're hoping someday can maybe be revived in some shape or form.
We're always talking to Josh about finding
what our next
something
thing is.
So
I mean, he's one of our closest friends.
it'll happen.
I think it will happen.
Yeah.
One of these days.
Absolutely.
Now, very exciting. Your latest movie, The Addams Family 2, is now in cinemas, movie theaters around the world. For the uninitiated, can you tell everybody what the film's about?
Yeah. The film is about the Addams family, our lovable Addams family, in the aftermath of the first movie, where they sort of have moved into this New Jersey town and sort of started to become accepted by the people there. Wednesday Addams is feeling a little bit alienated from the rest of her family, and in an attempt to kind of bring the family closer together, Gomez decides that they're going to take a vacation together to, you know, become closer as a family, get bonding happening, you know, but in a, you know, sort of a twisted Addams Family kind of way. But in the midst of that, there comes a question about Wednesday's true parentage, and is she really a member of the Addams family or not? And so that story is also playing out over the course of this road trip. And it all comes to, you know, of course, comes together by the end. And it's so basically Addams Family Vacation, but with a little bit of a twist in the middle.
Yeah.
So assumedly the next one will be Addams Family Christmas Vacation.
We'll see. You know, we're you know, thankfully it seems like the movie did very well so far, and we're hoping that there will be a next one.
Yeah.
But whatever it is, I am sure it will be something like that, whether it's great. You know, I think what's funny about the Addams Family is that it plays on these other kind of family movies. And so you can sort of take something like Vacation or something like, I don't know, Meet the Parents, you know, where you can take these family scenarios and transpose it into the Addams.
The original, you know, live action movies where, you know, the Addams Family Values is like a camp movie, but with Addams thrown in. And,
right.
You know, it is taking some of those like classic American family tropes and putting them through the distorted lens of the Addams Family.
Right. It's really just fascinating to imagine them in any situation, right? They're on a sinking ship, they're in a horror movie, they're in space, and it's going to be a completely different kind of movie just because they're in it.
Yeah,
exactly. And the characters are so defined from over the years, you know, from when we were writing the movie, we were looking at the original comic strips from Charles Addams. We were looking at the original show. Of course, the Raul, Julia, and Angelica Houston movies, which are absolute cornerstones of at least my comedic education growing up, because those came out right in the sweet spot of, you know, we were like 8 or 9 or something like that. So those movies are baked into my DNA. And so it was when
we got the opportunity to write this, it was just like, yes, we needed to write these characters. It was just, and it was so much fun. Like,
it's just fun. It's just fun when you can really feel like you know a character even before you start writing the movie. And so that it's fun to write classic lines in their style, but also see where are the places that the characters, we haven't seen them in certain situations. We haven't seen them on Vacation, for instance. What does that look like? What is an Addams Family tourist attraction that is interesting to them? And posing those sorts of questions often generated the funniest stuff in the movie because you have to put it through this lens, and we had a really good time doing it.
Who were your favorite Addams Family characters to write?
Gomez
is my favorite for sure. Gomez, I realized in the process of writing, is kind of just my internal monologue expressed aloud, you know, just sort of very dramatic and very, you know, his honor is constantly impugned, and it's very close to my heart.
Everything is 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10 emotion, 10 out of 10 despair, 10 out of 10 joy. 10, you know, that was a lot of fun for us. The other one that I really enjoyed writing was Uncle Fester. just because he's so weird and so
Yeah, whatever weird joke you want to write fits in Fester's mouth.
right.
Like,
Coming from Fester, you can pretty much write anything, and put him in any situation, and also know that like somehow he's indestructible. Like you can't really kill him because that's just sort of the nature of Fester, and so you could really put him through anything and have him kind of survive and like still kind of have like a very positive attitude about whatever just happened. And that's a lot of fun when you have a character that's so kind of blithe in their outlook on like anything that happens, even if it's bad. That's always
Nick Kroll's performance.
And Nick Kroll is
funny
hilarious.
that he really elevates those lines too.
Yeah, the vocal performance from everybody are awesome. I mean, it's an all-star cast. So that was a lot of fun for us as well.
And I also discovered during this movie, Lurch is an incredible singer. But can you tell me, was the song "I Will Survive" written in the script, or was it one that happened to be available that they thought would work for the movie? How did that come about?
I think it went through.
Some iterations,
several different songs. You know, we always had Lurch singing a song at the
Miss Lurleen's biker bar.
At the biker bar, and I think throughout when we were writing, and then just like even continuing into production, that song changed several times. But we always knew that moment was gonna be hilarious. Yeah.
The film's only just come out in the UK, but can you tell me, each of you, what your favourite scene from the film is without spoilers?
Without spoilers.
Or with spoilers. Just ruin it.
I really enjoy the way Uncle Fester's story culminates. I think it's super funny. It's he has what seems like a small comedic runner going alongside for the whole movie, but then it blows up to epic proportions, and that was something that we were pretty proud of.
I really like, there's a moment where Gomez is feeling kind of low, and he kind of rallies himself to thinking about what does it really mean to be family? Does it really matter if you're blood related to someone or not? And he sort of makes a decision that no matter what, Wednesday is his daughter, and he will do anything to protect her, and he kind of rallies the troops, and he has a very funny line where he's like, the Addams Family are coming, and you will know us by our trail of dead. And it's, I don't know, I didn't think that line would survive the process because it was so kind of over the top, but there it is, and it makes me laugh every time.
Can you tell me a bit about your creative process? Do you sit in a room and work all the scenes out together, or do you go, I'm going to write this scene and you write that one, and then you give feedback on each other's scenes? How do you work?
It sort of varies depending on the project and what stage of the project we're in. In the initial sort of outlining, brainstorming, idea generation part of the process, we're together, we're talking it through. When we're not together, we're texting back and forth. Like we're always in a near constant communication with each other, talking about ideas. And, so we get basically on the same page about what we want to do. And then, for the actual act of then writing that out, we usually do most writing separate. Dan will work on one thing while I'm working on another, and we'll switch, and then we'll rewrite what each other wrote, and it'll go back and forth, and it'll get to the point where by the time a script is done, we completely forget who wrote which lines. Like,
it happens all the time. You wouldn't think that I know probably a lot of people have said that, but there are definitely times where I'll say, Benji, this is an amazing line you wrote, and he'll say, you wrote that line actually. Then I'll say, I have no memory of writing that whatsoever. I literally do not remember creating that, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So it does become sort of like a group mind.
So it is like a back and forth. And then I would say for like revisions and refinements later in the process, that's where we'll get back together again. We'll both sit at the computer.
And we'll read through it aloud and really go over it with a fine-tooth comb, sort of in the last stages of fine-tuning and tweaking and stuff.
But yeah, we know some writing teams where they don't write a single word unless they're both sitting there together at the computer at the same time. And we've just found, you know, our way of sort of going back and forth and splitting up and coming back together, that works for us. It also helps, you know, because a lot of the time we're extremely busy and have multiple projects going on at the same time. And so, yeah, it helps us be more productive.
Yeah.
One thing I love about the film too is, so it's not just written for kids, like adults going along either with your kids or just by yourself are going to get a lot of fun out of the movie too.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. We you know, we try to put humor for everyone in. Like, yes, obviously there are the jokes for the kids that we know the kids will get, but then, you know, there's a lot of fun in putting in jokes. There's a proud tradition in animation of putting in jokes that go over the kids' heads and, you know, that are just there for the parents.
And I think that we stuck to that in Addams Family. And Addams Family are also uniquely suited to do that because they are macabre and they are gruesome at times. And Gomez and Morticia are extremely into each other. So there's sort of a more adult element in sort of that passion that they have for each other. That's always, I think, funny to adults, even maybe more so than kids, because of just the, you know, the epic spark between them that is everlasting, which I always enjoy. I really enjoyed writing that part of it as well.
It's October, it's spooky season. Can you tell me which movies get you both into the Halloween spirit?
It's a great question. I always watch The Nightmare Before Christmas around this time.
That's what I have on loop basically every day for my two girls. They're 2 and 4, and Nightmare Before Christmas is all they want all day, every day.
Yeah, Benji
I brought that on myself.
Benji is very much in a Nightmare Before Christmas cycle right now. But actually, scary movies, my favorites are probably 28 Days Later is my probably all-time favorite horror movie, and maybe followed by Hellraiser. The original Hellraiser is a masterpiece, and Clive Barker is a genius, and there's always something to discover in it. Event Horizon, also extremely scary, but actually like maybe too scary to watch regularly. So I'm a little bit wimpy in that respect, but 28 Days Later is not only my favorite horror movie, but one of my favorite movies of all time. It is next level brilliant.
And you can recreate that movie now just by going around London. Most of the streets are empty. So.
Great. That is just disheartening, but also it must be kind of, I don't know, sort of spookily interesting, you know, like. But yeah, hopefully we won't have to recreate it too much longer.
So have you ever got to keep any props or souvenirs from any of the productions that you've worked on?
Not really. No, unless you secretly have.
Do I secretly have some props? I think we have a few from Super Fun Night. There were some shirts that were made for like a Comic-Con episode. I think I still have that shirt. You didn't get a shirt?
No, I didn't get a shirt.
But I think that's kind of it. Yeah, we haven't taken full advantage of the prop.
Usually, like, they're pretty strict about not taking.
Yeah, they don't like to give out free stuff. We did ask for some posters.
I feel like it's only like the actors that are able to get away with getting cool.
The writers, they're like, we did take our chair signs from One Day at a Time that said
with our
Dan and Benji.
I mean, they had our names.
They had our names on them, so I don't think anyone else wanted them. So we do have those. I'm gonna be hanging that up in my office when my office is under construction right now. So thankfully we have Benji's office, but that'll be something that'll go up in my office once it's ready.
Now here's a question that I ask every guest on the Sarah O'Connell show. Can you both please tell me a fun fact about you? It can be a hobby, a party trick, something like that.
I'm an avid Lego builder. Everything you see here is Lego. This is all Lego. The flowers are Lego. It's all that typewriter is Lego.
The Darth Vader.
I love. Yeah,
whatever.
That's my de-stress hobby. Yeah.
What's a fun fact about? What's an interesting thing? I'm a collector. I will avoid the word hoarder, but
he's a hoarder.
I love stuff. So my dream is to someday have enough space to almost have a mini museum in my house of all of the sort of souvenirs and junk and statues.
Your
and
wife better not see this interview.
my wife is not that into this idea, but I think it's a great idea. So I love just collecting things. A lot of my passions are, and a lot of the knowledge base that I have comes from collecting toys, collecting comics, reading comics avidly. I get very locked into things, and so I love. I don't know. There's just something about looking at something in your collection, and it's hard to describe to someone who's not a collector, but to see a piece of art or a rare action figure and just be like, yes, I'm very satisfied looking at this on my shelf. Feels very good. And I'm not talking about spending tons of money. I just like certain key like records, vinyl records. When you find the one you've been looking for, like I won't buy them online. I have to find them, like I call it in the wild.
Right.
I look for records in the wild, and if I find one in the wild that I've been looking for a while, it's like the most exciting part of my week. So I'm a big like archivist, you might say.
So I very much look forward to being invited to the opening of your new museum.
Absolutely, please. It's going to be awesome someday. It might not be for 20 years, but someday it will be real.
I'm very excited about it. So you're also showrunners on a brand new Hulu show called Koala Man. What can you tell us about that? It's an animated series.
Yeah, it's an adult animated series. Justin Roiland, creator of Rick and Morty and Solar Opposites. He's an executive producer on it. We're the showrunners. It's a character that's created by this guy Michael Cusack, who's in Australia, brilliant, vocal performer and animator, and he made these shorts with this character of Koala Man, and we helped him develop them into a full-length, series. And he's a middle-aged. The character is a middle-aged Australian guy whose sort of midlife crisis is he decides he's going to become his small town's superhero. He has no powers, but he puts on a koala mask and a cape, and he says he's Koala Man, and he's gonna, clean up this small town from all the sort of annoying, mundane things that bother. People are driving too fast, people are loitering, and there's graffiti and things but of course, over the course of the series, it always blows up into something much larger and more surreal and supernatural.
Right. It always starts with something very banal, like your grass is too long, and by the end he's fighting aliens or something. So it always will build from this sort of very grounded place into something insane.
But we're really excited about it. We're in the middle of production now. The episodes are all so funny. The writers, it's an amazing writing staff. We're getting some great actors to do the voices, and
I wish we could talk about it, but
we can't.
We can't reveal it right now.
Too much we can reveal, but
it's a very exciting cast that's coming together that I think people will be very excited about.
Yeah, animation takes a while, so it's probably going to be a year before it's on the air. But I think people are going to love it.
We're having a good time.
You're working on so much stuff that sounds like fun to me. Also, Ultraviolet and Black Scorpion, which I believe is a Disney Channel show about a girl who finds a luchador mask and becomes a superhero.
Yes.
Exactly. Yes.
Yes. So that's a show
actually in production right now.
Yeah, that's in production now. I think it is supposed to come out in January,
early next year.
Early next year. And yeah, that's a show that we created and are executive producers on, because of Koala Man and some of our other obligations. We're not, day-to-day running that show and not, actively writing the series going forward, but we're still very much involved and as producers.
We cast the show as well.
Yeah, we cast the show. So. We put it together and we created this character of Ultraviolet, and it's part of like what Dan was saying, wanting more representation in the superhero genre. That's why we.
Well, that's why I thought it was important for us to do this. Since we weren't being offered, a Latino or in this case a Mexican American superhero to write, we thought, well, why don't we make our own, and why don't we try to make it culturally specific and not sand off the edges of this community and this culture and this language and all of those things. And to do something for kids that I hope will be positive representation and not just for Latino kids and kids all around the world, but for non people who aren't as familiar with that culture, to say, hey, this is a great show and everyone can enjoy it, but we're not losing that cultural specificity. In fact, we're inviting people to come and enjoy it and learn about it and be hopefully, for little kids, inspired by it. It was just a great opportunity, and we're really hoping that people love the show and that it turns out to be everything that we think it can be. But we're really proud of it so far.
And can you tell me anything else you might be working on or attached to at the moment that's in production?
Those are
the only ones we can really talk about.
Yeah, those are the ones that are public knowledge. There's a couple big movies that we're working on right now that we wish we could tell you about, but hopefully those will, get announced in the not too distant future. And
then a couple other TV things that we're excited about as well that hopefully we'll be able to talk about soon.
I think things are very busy.
It's a busy time.
There's a lot of exciting things on the horizon.
Absolutely, and of course you're both very welcome back next time when you can say more. I know other things you're attached to on IMDb include The Village, Nightwolf, and Heavy Duty.
So Heavy Duty was the one that we're talking about with Josh Gadd. He was gonna star in that. We're hoping that'll come back. Nightwolf is a superhero movie that we wrote for Kevin Hart. We're waiting to see what's going to happen with that one, but
there's been some scheduling thing. I'm still optimistic that
someday in some form is going to. I think that
they're still trying to actively get that one.
The pandemic kind of messed up the timetable on that one as far as what was even possible, and but we're still optimistic. That's a superhero comedy as well. Is we're really excited about it. And Kevin is amazing. And so we're hopeful that becomes a real thing soon enough.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips for anybody that wants to get into script writing? What has helped you out?
I mean, really, it's like just start by writing a lot. Like, it's not about, I think a lot of people when they're trying to break in, they think they just need like their one script and like, this is my script and this is great. Dan and I probably wrote a dozen movies before we ever sold a movie. And
as many
pilots too before we started working in TV. It's like every time you do it, you learn a little more. And like if we were to look at our first script, we would probably cringe at it. And it's a skill that needs to be refined like anything else. And so write a script and then write another one and start getting people to read them. And as the scripts get better, more people will want to read them and send them to other people. And
I think it's just a process of really, you need different tools in your tool belt. Not every script is right for every project. And if you are interested in doing a lot of different things like we were, why not write a multicam script if you have a good idea for it? Why not write a spec of a show that you think you could write really well? And all of those things at different points in our career have yielded tangible results for us. So our attitude is put as many bullets in your gun as you can. Maybe that's too morbid, but put as many tools in your utility belt as you can, and deploy them when it makes sense to do so. And don't. The only other piece of advice I would have is I think a lot of times people will try to be prescriptive about the kinds of things you should write or the topics that you should write about. Something that's been on my mind the last few days. And I find that that's almost always wrong. I think that trying to chase what someone else thinks you should be writing is usually not useful.
Mhm.
Your job is to kind of provide someone with something that they didn't know that they wanted, or something that only you could have provided because it's from your own point of view, or it's from something that happened in your culture or your family that is so specific to you and so unique. Not that everything needs to be autobiographical, but synthesizing all of those things into something unique that only could have come from your brain, I think, is the way that I notice new writers, rather than, I think sometimes there's a tendency to say, well, you should write something like Ted Lasso. You should write something like whatever, Modern Family, and I find the opposite is true. I find that you want to write something that's technically great, but that isn't necessarily something that people have seen a million times before and that only you could have made. And so trying to dig down into what is your voice, what is that story that I can tell that hasn't been seen before, that's how I think you get attention from people in a position to give you jobs or to help your career when you're starting out. So that would be a recommendation that I would make.
It's really good advice. And my final question, have you got any messages for people watching the Sarah O'Connell Show and your fans around the world?
Our fans around
Our
the
fans
world.
around, I like the sound of that. I'm not sure it's true, but I like the sound
No,
of it.
I'll take it.
I'll take it.
I'm around the world, I'm a fan.
You are around the world
That's
and you're a
true.
fan. So,
There you go.
I guess all I would say to our fans around the world is, no matter what you're doing, don't let people tell you what you're capable of. Find out for yourself. Don't put artificial barriers on what is the utmost of what you can achieve, because so often people are wrong, and people think that they know. I think so often of the line in Capote, where Capote said, the movie, where Philip Seymour Hoffman says, people always think they have me figured out, and they're always wrong. And I think that that's a really good thing to think about when you're trying to set out to do anything difficult. There's never a convenient time to do anything. There's never a convenient time to move to Los Angeles. There's never a convenient time to have a baby. I can tell you that for sure after having two during this pandemic. But you just do it. You go for it. And if it's important enough, you keep going for it. And just remember that ultimately you have to be the arbiter of whether it's worth continuing, whether it's worth diverting that energy into something else that's satisfying, or whether it's worth stepping away from whatever artistic or job or whatever situation that you're in. But you're the only one that actually understands the potential that you have. And I hope that I hope that people take those chances when they can.
It's very well said.
Yeah, it's hard to follow that.
Follow me on Twitter now.
I guess I wanted to say to all of our fans around the world, thank you.
Yes,
for being our fans, and we hope to keep making things that you guys like, and
hopefully this is just the beginning, and there's more fun stuff to come.
Right, from the fans and people watching our stuff is the reason why we do this. We aren't making these shows and movies for ourselves. We want to entertain people, and that's what brings us joy. So it's always great to hear when
people are vibing.
When people love what we do, it makes us very happy.
Well, Dan, Hernandez and Benji Samit, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a lot of fun chatting to you both.
Yeah, it's been amazing.
It's been
Thank you
great.
so much for having us. We loved it.
And to everybody watching at home, thank you too. Be sure to share, subscribe, give this video a big thumbs up, and leave lots of lovely comments. And I'll see you all again soon for another episode of the Sarah O'Connell Show. Bye.